Alright, so this PowerPoint will be on Compass for you. So like I said, don't copy any of the exact words off here unless you need to use them. There'll be some words in here that you will need to have in your sack. There'll be some words that you don't need to have in your sack. The words you need to know, I'll let you know. I'll give you a list, okay? So don't stress about that. Alright, so this time was quite a long time ago, okay? Over 2,500 years ago. Alright, well really only just over 2,500 years ago. It was in the time of BC, or we sometimes call BC something else now. Does anyone know what that is? Yep?
BCE.
BCE. So BC is before Christ. We now say before Common Era because not everybody is Christian and not everybody believes in Christ. Okay, so, but it's the same particular time. And now we also have, if you have BC, you have AD, now we also have just CE, the Common Era. So we are currently in the Common Era, or AD, but we don't put the letters after it anymore. It's actually Latin, Anno Domini, but people say it's after the death of Christ. But yeah, it's Anno Domini actually is the year of our Lord, which is different, the year of his birth. So yeah. So here, that is when the theatre was around at the same time as this particular civilization, and this is where we as a society see that we came from in terms of democracy and thinking. Okay, a lot of our thinking, a lot of our ways we judge, the way we look at crime, the way we do any of those sort of things, comes from this particular way of thinking in this particular time. They were at war with the Persians. Now, we don't call a country Persia anymore. Does anyone know where that country is and what we call it now? It is in the Middle East somewhere. Have a go. Good try, but these are more Islamic people, and it's Iran. So close, yeah, so Iran. And Athens, which we know is the capital of Greece, became the centre for Greek power and culture. At this particular time, they didn't necessarily see themselves as one country. There were lots of different cities, and they saw themselves as slightly different, but they were all Greece. They saw that all together. Okay. Have you heard stories of, the city of Troy with the Trojan horse? That's a similar time. Okay, they were at war with Troy. They tried to get Helen of Troy. Now a lot of those places are probably quite close together. We might think, oh, aren't you pretty much the same country? But they saw themselves as a little bit different. But anyone who was in Greece was an outsider. And by outsider, totally ostracized. They weren't considered one of them. They weren't good enough. They weren't clever enough. They certainly weren't sophisticated enough. You can't be anywhere near as good as we are. Do we have that problem now? Pat says yes. Can you tell me more about this problem?
Isn't that just like racism?
It is, yeah. Yeah, so in Australia now, people still say things, if you weren't born here, you're not good enough. People say things, if you are not white-skinned, they will say, where do you come from? And you think to yourself, well, I was born in Melbourne, so where I came from, I'm not really sure what you're wanting me to say about that. Because they're waiting for you to say something like, the depths of Africa, or I come from Kuwait, or they're waiting for you to say some other country, yes? And so that's how we separate here. And a lot of our crime or some of our problems, people seem to blame on other people, yes? Yes? And what is the current fear that we have in our media at the moment? Yeah? Islamophobic, and tell me what that is.
People are afraid. There's this negative stigma around Muslim people.
So what is the stigma? Let's put it out there.
They're
They're terrorists. So essentially they are going to kill us. And there are people who actually believe this and are very scared and see someone who is a Muslim and go, oh my God, I'm actually scared for my life. They're going to do something to me. Yes? Similar to this. They were that scared. They were that wary of outsiders. So Medea is an outsider. And they saw her as a witch, as someone weird, as someone different. And she could do things to them that they couldn't control, and that was scary. Okay? It was known as classical Greece, and a lot of these plays are considered classics. And much of our thinking, politics and philosophy does come from this particular time in society. Okay? All right, so now we're going to be looking at actual theatre. In this particular time, they had festivals to gods. They didn't have one god. Some religions now have one god. They had many gods. And have you seen shows like Hercules and heard of Zeus and all those sort of things? Yep, that's this particular time. This was their religious belief. Don't stress. And so it's really important that you understand this was their religious thing. They're not just, they might look like little stories to us, but if we were to go back in time and go, that's just a stupid story, it's like you going up inside a Christian church and saying the Bible is just a bunch of fairy tales. Or going into a mosque and saying, you know, this Quran, isn't this just random words written on a page by some person who wanted to invent a story? Okay? Highly offensive, rude things to say, yes? So I don't think we would go back in time and say, oh, your little stories, they're cute, but we don't really believe in them. What they actually believed in was we're down here on earth, and the gods were literally up here, looking down from heaven, moved the clouds when they wanted a better view, watched. If they were feeling a bit bored, they would poke people and push them and make things happen, and oh, you can just fall in love with this person now. I wonder if I make you hate them and you have a fight. I wonder what happens if I actually just kill this person and see what will happen here. So it was just sort of, they either were doing good or bad from us, but they were just doing. Yes? And if they were really bored, they would just come down on earth and have a real play. Okay? And then they would just go back up there, and you couldn't really do anything about what they were doing. And if bad stuff was happening, you go, oh, well, that's the gods. But then the Greeks, at this particular time, started to think, hey, we can make rules, and surely everybody will obey them, including the gods. Well, gods don't really submit to human rules, and Euripides sort of tells them, so you can't really control them, okay? But there was this festival, and it was a particular competition, and Euripides entered, and his play, Medea, only came third, so it didn't win. A lot of our plays, I don't know which ones came first and second. Is that what you're going to ask?
I was going to ask, wasn't it third out of 3 places?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
We're just going to say third. We don't want to mention last. But there were some reasons why he came third, and his play wasn't really liked because he pushed a lot of the boundaries that people had established at the time in their thinking. And people were quite insulted and annoyed at his play. And a lot of those plays written at the time, we don't have access to them anymore. They've been lost, which is really sad. And they'll be performed, and there was this big, massive festival, lots of food, lots of drinking, and only men. Men were in the play, men performed in the play, men were in the audience, and women were maybe at home cooking. I'm not really sure what they were doing. Tending the children. All right. So a lot of their theatre is quite similar to how we have theatres now. Has anyone ever been to the city and seen a musical or the ballet or anything like that? 1 or 2 people? So sometimes theatres, they have the that's an MCG. Yes? So you have the MCG, and you have the very top tiered seats, and you have all the way down the closed seats, and then the ground is there. Yes? Imagine just half the MCG now. Okay? So that's the ground is the stage, and all the seats go up. And that was built in a little valley so that they would dig it out and put stones there for seats and stuff like that, because they didn't have microphones, there was no electricity. So when they were acting, the voices and sounds would go out and then bounce back in on the land. So sometimes you can hear me in here because my voice bounces off the walls and bounces back into your ears. If I was talking the same level and we're outside, you might not be able to hear me if the wind was there. Okay? So, has anyone ever been in one of those outdoor sort of venues? It looks like a theatre, but it's just got seats tiered down and there's a little bowl? Or the Maya Music Bowl where the Christmas carols are on Christmas Eve? You've seen it on TV, maybe? And it looks like it's going down? I'll try and get some more pictures. Meg's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. There's no picture in her head. Okay, so these theatres were always outdoors. At the stage, there was what we call the orchestra. And now, if you go to the theatre, what we call the orchestra will still be down in the pit. So if you go see the ballet, and here's the stage, and the people are dancing here, just in front of them is the orchestra, and then all the tiered seating is here, and you're looking down, and they're sort of almost underground. They're below the stage, okay? And if you go see a play or a musical or something, at the end of it, all the actors bow and you clap them and you're saying yay. They often point down because they're pointing down to the orchestra, and they point up to the people who are doing the lighting. All right. And at the back there was the backdrop. It later was a stone construct, so they would bring stone in, they'd chip it away, and they were to maximise acoustics. So acoustics is sound. So the sound would go out, travel out, bounce off the seats, and come in. So it was all contained there. All right, here, can you see this picture? Does that help you, Meg? You just said yep, and it hasn't really at all.
No.
So here's the top of the hill that's lower down. This is tiered. So it's like steps. Have you seen the MCG? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so imagine this is the MCG, but only sort of half of it.
Okay.
Yes? And then here's...
Surely you wouldn't be able to hear that though, for all the way out there.
It's not as big as the MCG.
Oh, okay, yeah, true.
It's only
That
about
was
40
dumb.
years back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
forget about that.
Yeah, so it's not as big as the MCG, but it's the same set out.
And,
Okay?
and the sound would be bouncing off it. It'd be
Yeah.
around. So you,
And so the MCG is modelled in the same way, really, to maximise viewing. Because if it was just all flat, you're, in seat 100 back there, you can't actually see. And when you go to the theatre and the ground floor, it looks like you're all flat, but actually the gradient is slightly sloped, and then you have the tiered seating. Some of you need to try and get to a theatre. Speaking of which, have we all paid for Medea yet? Yes? If not, I did email last night. If you're having financial difficulties, you don't have to announce to the world, but you can come and see the school and see if we can organise payment plans or anything like that. Don't miss out because you're stressing about money. Okay? Come and speak to someone.
Is there any way to just to clarify that so you have paid?
Yes, I can look up for you. Okay? So I can do that in a minute. You do need to know this word, parados. It is sort of like a little corridor, but this is also where it's a part of the play when the chorus comes in, and we'll explain that a little bit more later on. All right, the actors, as I said, were men. The plays did have a chorus. Can you see some similarities between our modern theatre and this time now? So if you're in a musical, you have some lead actors, but then you have a chorus who sort of sings some main songs together. Yes? Okay. And so there were originally 50 speakers who would recite a story in verse. What does that mean? What are they doing if they're reciting a story in verse? Nick, what do you think that means? The clue is the word verse. They're singing. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And it began when an actor named Thespis had the idea for one person to break away from this chorus. So this was the first guy who said, we've got to have people here. One of us can actually step away from the chorus and give some extra information, and he would become the actor then. So his name is the origin of our word for actor, which is actually thespian. Okay, so the word thespian means actor, and you can see it comes from the Greek name Thespis. So our language, English, comes from Greek, Latin, and Germanic. Germanic meaning sort of like German type languages. Okay, we have stolen a little bit of French as well, but okay. So we have here. The chorus then moved to only about 15 people. When we go see the play, they're not going to have 15 people in the chorus for one simple reason. Can anyone guess what that simple reason is? Money. They don't want to have to pay extra people. Okay, it's very expensive to pay actors. It's very expensive to put on a play or a performance, which is why the performance costs so much for us to see. And it's actually quite cheap performance. If you go to see other performances, it can be $100. Okay, and so they're trying to keep the costs quite tight. Okay. The chorus narrates the drama and they comment on. So we've all read the play Medea, and in the chorus are talking to her at times, but they're actually commenting on her actions and they're passing judgment and they're asking questions. Should you really be doing this? Is this what you really want to be doing? I don't think you should be doing that. This was a bit of a shift when they were engaging quite heavily with Medea. Beforehand they were just saying, they see the action, they'd go, ooh, wouldn't be doing any of that. That's all a bit weird. Let's not do any of that. Or great idea. I love what they're doing. It's almost like they're separated from it. And then we obviously have the actors. Does anyone know anything else about this particular time when people were acting? About their costumes or what they wore? It's all new to everybody. Are people seeing similarities between what was happening then and what's happening now? Yeah. All right, so they did wear masks because, as I said, it was men, but the plays weren't all about men. This play is definitely not about a man. It's quite interesting that it's quite heavily about a woman, but no woman would have seen it and no woman would have acted in it. Okay? So to look like a woman, they would have worn masks and had costumes that said they were old, a woman, a servant, or this or that. Okay, so they separated by using masks. The masks were made of natural products. That we didn't have plastic or anything like that then. It was all, had to carve it out or make it like this. And it had a big mouth. So the mouth wasn't covered, because I'm covering my mouth, you can't really hear me now, can you? But when they have a big mouth, it actually acts like a megaphone. Okay, so it projects the voice out like a megaphone. Those large megaphones. Okay, and they were, like I said, designed to show age and things like that. So it's quite interesting, their technology, yes, how they use it to maximize things. Yeah. Now, this is our common sort of, our little picture to say, oh, drama, this is always used for drama. So this originates from some of the masks they used to have. Okay, they look a bit creepy, yes?
Are they going to wear those when we go see it?
No, they'll probably actually just, they'll have women in it and they'll just be acting. Costumes help them change roles as well. We do this in our plays as well. Sometimes two actors play, so one actor plays two parts. And so you realise that it's a different character. They've changed costume, or they've got a hat on now, or something else has happened, because you can recognise that it's the same human, and you enjoy the play knowing it's a different character because they've got a different costume on or something like that. They often wear robes in different colours. Does anyone know the colour that represents royalty? Purple. Sometimes red, but yeah, purple mostly. And they would associate certain costumes with that particular colour. So if I came in a purple robe, they'd go, oh, maybe she's a princess. So they don't have to go, oh, hello, princess, rah, rah. Does anyone here watch NCIS? I don't mind NCIS, but sometimes I'm like, oh, you're acting as if everyone's really stupid. And so let's say the investigator has gone to talk to the scientist, and in a real situation, the scientist would just say, oh, it's shown, blah, blah, whatever it's shown, and they go, hey, do you realise that this particular investigation system can actually show the traits of da-da-da-da? And that's for the audience, whereas in real life, that would never happen. The investigator would go, I don't care what the machine does. Don't tell me what the machine does. Just tell me if this person's the murderer or not. Okay? So giving information that we don't really need is annoying in NCIS, so they don't have it there. Just the things symbolise. A hat could be that you're going on a journey, or you've got a bag or something that says you're travelling. Other things there. All right. So the chorus is one of the most famous relics of Greek theatre. It still is in play today. It's definitely carried through. Its purpose was to speak in unison. So they all spoke at the same time, all 15. So if you have one actor speaking and then you have the whole chorus speaking, it's much louder. And it's also a show of strength. They comment, as we said, comment on what's happening, they express their opinion, and they often represent a group of people that suit the play. So it could be, this is just all the older people from that particular era. In our play, what is the group that they represent?
Women.
The women, yes. Which women? Corinth. Women of Corinth.
What's relic?
Relic means old heirloom type thing, leftover stuff. So if you go searching in a historical pit and you're looking for relics, you're looking for old plates or cups or things.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
What was that?
Sorry, I grew up having a massive interest in history, and so that was like
you
a
did
really,
history last year. Yeah.
no, like even as a child, I was always into ancient history stuff. So like that was a really, for me, that was like a really obvious thing. Like, how do you know? I'm weird.
It's alright. Sometimes people don't know the weirdest words. I know one word I didn't know in grade 6, and I'm not going to say what it is now, and I put up my hand thinking, oh, that'll be a really good question, and I asked the teacher what that word meant, and the whole class laughed because they all knew what it was, and I'm like, oh, Jesus.
What?
I'm not telling you.
Oh god.
I was scarred forever. The whole class laughed. You'll all laugh at me. Alright, so the chorus will wear plain masks and plain robes to make them separate from everybody else. They weren't there to be this really, really big, pretty thing that everyone just couldn't keep their eyes off. Their eyes were supposed to be on the actual action in the play, but they were there to be sounding together. And they needed to look the same so they couldn't be separated and differentiated. And they would stay in the orchestra while the actors were on the stage, so they were definitely separated that way as well. In the play, we see that won't happen because we don't have different pits and things like that for different types of people. Alright, so Greek theatre, we talked, was about 2,500 years ago, before the Common Era, so it was before Christianity. Okay, because we know that Christianity was after that. The stages were outdoors. They sat in a semicircle around a stage in the tiered position. There were 3 actors were used in the drama and 15 speakers in the chorus. The chorus narrates, they speak in unison, and masks and costumes were used to distinguish. If we go back up here, there are 3 actors. Are there only 3 characters? So how did they do this? What they do? They would change parts, okay, and they would show the difference when they change parts with different costumes or masks.
Is that why in Medea they only have like 2 or 3 people on the?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yep. Okay, and that is it for that. So what I would like you to do now is to